Hi there. So hopefully you're here because you heard our episode on Mouchão Winery and wanted to hear more from their amazing winemaker.
If you've not heard the full episode yet, new listeners, start there. It's episode 8 and it's called The Reddest Grape.
This is a bonus extra for those who enjoyed a deep dive into Alicante Bouschet and now want to dive even deeper into one of Alentejo's most famous, historic and celebrated wineries.
Oh, this is fun. Wow.
Entering Mouchão's tasting room, brushing through a door created from corks all strung together, is like stepping into a living room steeped in history. The history of Iain Reynolds Richardson's family over the past 200 years.
There are old black and white photographs of the family on all the walls, spies with donkeys, group photos with the familiar shape of the winery behind.
There's a giant fireplace in one corner with a gun hidden inside, and a large tasting table in the middle. As we entered for the first time for a tasting with Iain and winemaker Hamilton Reis, it was covered with Mouchão wines.
And is this the range of wines laid out in...
Effectively, yeah.
So just explain them all to us if you can, just quickly.
Don Rafael is the sort of entry level, and there's a red and a white.
Thank you. Right, so the first wine we're tasting, what's this?
Yeah, so Hamilton, these are yours.
And this is the Don Rafael between the white and the red. Those two, they are very important on the house. Very important for us because they are historical wines and they carry on the identity of what we think is the old Alentejo. They are only made with typical Alentejo grape varieties. So the white wine, Don Rafael, is made with Alentejo, the classic of all the whites in Alentejo. Rinto, the classic from Portugal, if you want, that is all over from the north to the south of Portugal because it's a really good grape, that's why. And then we have a little bit of Fernão Pires that was always important in Alentejo. The red is a pure expression of what is Alentejo. Hot and dry climate, translated to juice, ripe berries, blueberries, strawberries kind of flavors. Trincadeira, Aragonês, Castelão, and of course the historical grape that we bring to the table, the Alicante Bouschet. So those two wines, they need to take the message of what is a classic Alentejo wine. They are just wines to enjoy it. Is that what we want from Don Rafael? Mm. Wines that you finish the bottle.
Yes.
That said, we're actually looking for a wine it's a very serious wine. I like to think Don Rafael. It's not got the sort of commercial sort of sweetness, sweet woodiness. We're actually trying to do something serious, very serious with it. It's made in exactly the same way as Mouchão, up until the point of blending in January. So up until then, it's in lagars with stems and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Foot trodden, hand-picked. It's exactly the same process.
They're fantastic, I have to say, both of them are so good.
Then we got the Pont, which is like a new range. This was introduced about 15 years ago. Why? Because what we wanted to do, before we only had Don Rafael and Mouchão, what we wanted to do is actually introduce a range that was what we call the top of the range, but that's non-Alicante. So it's our non-Alicante top-end wine. And we used what we call the modern varieties here, which is the Tutorigas and Syrah. Mm-hmm. So that's what this is. That's for the red. And the white, we found a lovely old book, travel book, going back to 1909, where it went on and on about the Verdelho at Mouchão. So I top grafted some Verdelho in 2015, and we produce only 2,000 bottles a year of that. Wow. So it's a pure Verdelho, just to bring back the old tradition.
Wow.
Now it's got a nice little...
We've met Hamilton Reis before at his house. He makes his own fabulous wines under the Natus Vini label and has developed a historical twist on Talia or amphora wine.
But this was a good opportunity to ask him more about his background and why he'd always wanted to lead the winemaking here at Mouchão.
So I'm from Porto. I used to work for many years in Alentejo. Mouchão was always a dream. I always wanted to be the winemaker of Mouchão because it is a unique place. It's an historical place, and it's back to the roots. It's where wine is wine. Mm-hmm. When you have the same spots on the field, same techniques on the winery, same team also constantly. In each single vintage you can understand what is the consequence of a year. Is always a dream for someone that wanted to be related with the nature, and this is the place, that's why.
And in his handful of years at Mouchão, we asked Hamilton what he has learned.
So what I did learn, that slow down, less is more, and time is very critical on wines. Things take time. I probably spend more time, at least at the beginning of the vintage, more time in the vineyards than what I spend in the winery. It's all about understanding what is going on the fields, so that we are on top of it. Mainly with the global warming now, that is even more difficult. You totally need to be on top of everything. So as we pay a lot of attention to the fields, because it's where the wine is made, and as we know very well our plots, we can fine-tune things about picking dates, and that is actually quite important.
I wanted to ask a question about another relationship. So when we met you in Vila de Frades, and also today you told us that Mouchão was really a goal, like a dream for you and for many winemakers.
I think for me it was.
Yes. And so we realized that the bar is quite high to be a winemaker here. So how did you go about finding Hamilton?
Oh, we met in a property near Beja. So Hamilton was a trainee there, and I think just at the time, I remember Hamilton, we sort of hit it off, but he had I always remember being in admiration of his attitude and approach to everything, to making wine and so on. One of the things that we had to be to come to Mouchão is to have the sensitivity to what Mouchão is all about. It's not normal winemaking, if you like. It's not modern winemaking in the pure sense of the word, and it needed somebody with a sensitivity to how to respect what is Mouchão, and at the same time know how to apply his know-how, and he has plenty of that, in terms of hygiene and everything else, and making sure that our wines are at their peak.
There's a reason why this place is here for the last 120 years. There's a reason. It was not by chance. The wines are different, they are unique. The identity of these wines is unique. I was a big fan of Mouchão my entire winemaking life. Everyone I talked with, like all of the people that you mentioned, that when you ask who, there is something that you prefer, can you pinpoint your favorite? People say Mouchão. Well, I was one of those also.
Yeah, you were. You were in that story. You're one of the people I referred to, although you didn't say names. Yeah.
I was one of those because this is a unique place, and my entire career I thought, well, when people ask me, where do you see yourself? And where I was, I said, well, if not here, I want to be in Mouchão.
Next up in the tasting was the flagship, which takes the name of the winery.
On the back. And then we got the Mouchão, which we didn't used to do every year, but we find we can do it in good quantities in most years. Some years we only produce tiny quantities of it. And then there is a sort of specialty wine, if you like, because there was a lot of demand for a very pure Alicante, because the Mouchão always has roughly 15% of another variety in it. Alicante Bouschet is incredibly shy, and that 15% is usually needed just to give the wine a bit more of an aroma in its earliest years.
And you talked about the Tonnelle. That's something that you're very famous for. Tell us about your super high-end wines, the things that people will know about all over the world and have heard about.
Yeah, people really wanted. They were looking for an expression of a pure Alicante Bouschet, because we have been singing its qualities for years and years and years. And this was I think it was 96. I was still winemaking here. We made the first one in 96. And it was quite a success, and it still is. We bring it out every now and again, perhaps only 2 to 3 years in 10. We'd really want it to be more, but we'd never want to sacrifice Mouchão quality. That's the normal red label. Mm-hmm. So we'll only do a Tonnelle in years where we feel we've got enough quality in Mouchão to make it worthwhile. Okay. A lot of people don't understand why we do or don't, but it really is just that we don't sacrifice Mouchão, because that's our flagship, that's who we are. That's the one I like to have in my collection, and of course there are the aficionados who go for the Tonnelle 3-4, which is fantastic, there's no doubt about it, but it's absolutely wonderful wine, but it's not I don't know. It's a very personal thing. I still go for the Mouchão in my own wee collection.
If Mouchão was double price, believe me, it would be selling the same. The pressure we have here to sell is just insane. Another thing, like Iain insists that he wants to carry on selling at least 0.5% of Mouchão in Portugal. If the family, if tomorrow they want to export everything, in that same day, they will export everything. Okay. They can.
Of course,
But the mentality is different. They feel that they belong here. This history is part of them, and this is how they want to carry on. And that, I think that is great.
And what goes into the flagons?
So that really is sort of probably the younger vineyards, all the younger stuff, all the varieties which are non-Alicante. So in other words, it has to be ready quite soon, because that's the problem with Alicante, because it takes years and years and years to come around.
Also, one thing that I was wondering, the symbol.
It's a black cross in a square.
There's a lot of theories, different stories, but I believe more in one that Iain have.
Is it the window
Yes.
up there? That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. I noticed when we...
So we think, or Iain think, and I think he's right, that in the end was just a window. And probably that window, they realized that was too much sunshine inside,
Right.
and they closed it, too much heat, and then it became a symbol. But there's a lot of histories, like masons, a lot of...
Oh, I see.
There's one thing that when I saw it first time, I was like, whoa, what is this? In this part of the winery, around 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, mainly in summertime, if your gates are closed, as they should because it's too hot outside, and when you're coming out, on the floor, in the middle of the winery, there's this gigantic symbol of the Mouchão.
Oh.
That you look to the floor and say, how come? What is doing here? So that's why it's such a big mystery.
Yeah.
So at the very special part of the day, the sun reflects on the symbol, and through the hole of the, what do you say?
The key?
The key lock, it goes inside of the winery, and it becomes a gigantic symbol on
That's
the floor of the
amazing.
winery.
Wow.
Creepy, like no one told me. I've discovered by myself. I look to the floor, I say, what is this? And it's coming through the hole of the locker to the floor, reflected from the symbol that is in the outside, and it's really amazing.
That's not by accident, is it?
So that's when you say this cannot be an accident.
Yeah.
So then you go back and say, maybe it was not just a window.
Maybe there was more to it. Thanks so much for listening to this extra episode on Mouchão. If you haven't heard the rest of the series yet, do check it out and spread the word.
We'll be back soon looking at the important role cooperativos, or cooperative wineries, have played in Portugal over the last 50 years. See you then!